We've all seen by now the angry, violent mob attacking Toronto police officers at the door of the building on the grounds of the University of Toronto, pretending their violence and hate was in response to rape or incest or support of violence against children. Those alleged outrages attributed to Dr. Warren Farrell, a man who is by far the most soft-spoken and accommodating figure in association with the movement pursuing human rights for men and boys. The bottomless depravity, apparently the result of an improvised rant by Danielle Sandu, a self-styled egalitarian, dredging up the most vile and vicious accusations that she could dream up on the spot to fling like feces at Dr. Farrell, and by association, anyone who disagrees with the ongoing and accelerating marginalization of boys and men in a feminized education system. We've seen video of Danielle Sandu claiming to support equal rights, and later the same week flanked by compliant male enforcers assaulting and intimidating human rights activists and attendees to Dr. Farrell's November 16th talk at the University of Toronto. We've also seen, or at least heard about, the British Columbia teacher, activist, and member of the provincial New Democratic Party and executive member of the British Columbia Teachers Federation, which is her day job, and who in her free time organizes box-cutter-armed street mobs to tear down posters which read, "Men's rights are human rights," and attempts to physically intimidate members of the grassroots human rights movement Vancouver MRA. Sasha Wiley Shaw, also known on YouTube as Creepy Bitter Girl, who organized baton and club-armed thugs to assault and intimidate any non-feminist members of the Occupy Vancouver protests. We've seen the writing of politically connected feminists on a site called Radical Hub, notably the writing of a former lawyer named Pamela O'Shaughnessy, who now writes girl power crime novels for Simon & Schuster, and who, when not doing that as her day job, pens 4,000-word manifestos calling for eugenic extermination of the male 49% of the human race. We've seen the cute 20-year-old who calls herself Femi-Theist Divine and her apparent long-term plan to exterminate men from the planet, and to murder. Yes, she used the word murder. That's no characterization of mine. But to murder anyone with a mental or a physical disability. We've also by now seen the street violence of the European feminist organization Femen, who on their own website make their hatred and violence blatant and overt in the form of a photo of a topless woman carrying a hand scythe and an apparently recently severed and bloody pair of human male testicles. We've seen the host of a daytime TV show dance in her chair and giggle at the sexual mutilation of a man by the California resident Catherine Becker for the unforgivable crime of wanting a divorce. We also watched as the audience of that TV show, several hundred women, who giggled and cheered at this real-world sexual mutilation. We then watched that host, Sharon Osbourne, whose only real claim to fame was being a groupie of the rock musician Ozzy Osbourne, while we watched her giggle her way through a minute and a half of fake apology and then go right back to hosting the show on which she mocked the sexual mutilation of a man and was cheered for it. And all of this is just a short sample. We have all seen this. Feminists have seen it as well, because they have cheered and giggled and laughed at what is now an undeniable and modern and current history and growing trend of direct, savage violence at the heart of the ideology and the movement calling itself feminism. So I have a question. At what point does the world outside the men's rights movement wake up to the fact that not only is feminism the major social ideology of our culture, it is also a movement of not simply hatred and violence, but of continually escalating hatred and violence? And if you're a feminist, God help you. But how much hatred, brutality, censorship, and straight-up carnage does your movement and your ideology have to lay at your feet before you wake up and recognize that in this war you are on the side with a skull and crossbone on your cap badge? that your ideology and your movement is the violent, is the hateful, and I dare say the producer of escalating human carnage. How much more, before you see the damage and the blood and the violence that you are apparently so eager for more of? That is my question. And that is all.